Well, and I should say that I watch plenty of TV now. I don't have cable, but I watch shows on Amazon Prime and Netflix like we
Yeah.
all do. So I've caught up a little bit. No, I grew up in that environment that was highly restrictive. And what's been interesting, Lauren, over the many years since I left that is resolving the pain and the fear of it, but then coming back to look at the gifts that were there. And my siblings and I were raised in such an anomalous way compared to most of our peers. We were conditioned by plenty of things inside of that church environment, but we weren't conditioned by the popular culture. And we therefore had to develop, Cal Newport and different ones who write about how the brain works, talk about the value of boredom and the value of having nothing to do. And so because there wasn't a whole lot of external stimuli in our world, we went outside and made things. And I just know, and we read books and we drew and climbed trees. I mean, we just did so much that kids who grew up with television it wasn't as needed for them to go do those things because they had plenty of entertainment. So I've been able to look back at that and realize that I was kind of raised in a walled garden from that perspective, psychologically speaking, and really had the benefit of growing up seeing the world through different eyes than most of the people I was around.
Do you and your siblings talk about it now?
Oh yeah, of
I'm
course.
just fascinated by it. Did you read? I don't want to be insulting. I'm just so fascinated. Did you read Educated? Was it like?
Yeah, I haven't read that one. It's long enough ago for me that I don't really have a whole lot of interest in it anymore as far as trying to figure it out. I've been able to process it and I'm grateful for that. Had a lot of therapy, had a lot of things help me through it. But yeah, there's not a lot of energy in it for me. I don't really lead the conversation anymore. When I first left the group, that was often what I felt like I would have to lead with because I would run up against these gaps in social context so quickly. Now
Yeah.
that's not really a part of my life. And so I am a lot more excited about talking with people, whether we were raised in a cult or not.
Yeah.
We are raised in culture. And most people don't think about this, but the word cult is part of the word culture. And so a culture like in America here is just a really big cult. And if you think about it from that standpoint, like we are required to be loyal to it. We view other people outside of this as dangerous or at the very least outsiders. When you start thinking about the attributes of mind control and things, and I'm not taking a crack at America, just to say any environment that we live in does have the effect of conditioning our minds and our beliefs. And I really love talking about self-discovery and the kind of self-acceptance that can lead to making space for transformation, which in my lexicon, Lauren, transformation means finding out who we really are and becoming more of that.
I read that you always wanted to be a writer since you were 10 years old, but you didn't come to this till later.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you finally remember, oh yeah, I want to be a writer and get there?
Laura, I think it's so interesting how our inner self, you might want to call it a soul or the authentic self, whatever we want to call that, our inner self leaves clues. And I like to kind of think of the old childhood story of Hansel and Gretel dropping breadcrumbs on the trail. So our self, we drop breadcrumbs along the path of life. And if we find ourselves lost or discouraged, or I don't know if the rest of my life has any meaning at all, we can begin to look back for the breadcrumbs that we dropped and follow them back to ourselves, back home, And so, for me, I'll just give you a couple of those breadcrumbs. So when I went to Bible college, which was part of the church I grew up in, I wrote a paper, and the English teacher came and said, I would really love to read this to the class as one of the examples. And she read a couple of them and then read mine the last. And at the very end, we were all polite and supportive of the different papers, but at the very end, everyone in the class, there was this everyone started clapping, and I didn't know what to even take from that. It's like, wow, that feels amazing. And then as an adult later on, I began to write little things, but I didn't think of myself as a writer. I was just writing. I was just doing what came naturally. And I would notice it. One of my employees would be struggling with an email they were writing or a letter they were writing to a partner. And they would say, would you help me with this? And I would sit down and effortlessly in 2 minutes write it and hand it to them. And they would say, how did you do that? I said, I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't hard. And so when I eventually had the time and space in my life after the 2008-9 financial crisis. I got completely wiped out. I was an entrepreneur with several enterprises and big office and big house and all the things. And I was completely terrified. I was completely stressed out, felt very lost inside of that life that everyone else would look on and say was so successful. And so having that come along in 2007, before all that happened, I had been invited to go to a meditation retreat by one of my employees. It turned out to be a shamanic initiation. I had never tried any drugs. I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. So that was this tremendous breaking open and experience. Looking back at it, knowing research since then, I've learned that what I experienced was the equivalent of a near-death experience. And it gave me this snapshot, Lauren, of this is the life you've been creating. Is this all that you want to create? Is your pursuit of success truly in line with this freedom and this connection to the universe that you feel right now, and this lack of fear and this tremendous love, and this kind of like the last few moments in the American Beauty movie, where the character's laying there and he's like, your stupid little life that's so beautiful, so gorgeous. And I had that moment and several of those moments during that weekend. And so I returned to my life and I'm like, I do not know how I get to come back here. Don't know how to line up my life with what I just experienced. And so that was one of those big breaking open moments.
So what would you tell somebody who they have this feeling that there's something they're meant to be doing and they're not doing it? They're not taking that step.
You know, one thing that most of us stop doing at a very early age, Lauren, developmentally, is we stop learning how to listen to ourselves. In fact, we were often told, grow up, stop daydreaming, you're being childish, quit that. We get messages so quickly and so early that our feelings don't matter, that our inner voice doesn't matter, that we just need to fall in line with those around us and, stand in line, do the regular thing, do the conforming thing, because that's safe. And that's not some evil conspiracy against us. It's just the way that being enculturated works, that being conditioned works. To recover a sense of that inner voice, I love to start with a very simple practice.